Welcome to Some Stutter,
Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast.
It's about communicating differently.
I'm Paul.
I'm Laura.
I'm Greg, and I'm a person who stutters.
Our guest today is Nicole Kulmaczewski. And Nicole is a speech-language pathologist working in upstate New York. And she is a deputy executive director of myspeech.org, which enables you to access affordable speech therapy resources and community support. We'll hear more about her unique approach to working with people who stutter. But the central focus is on grief therapy or grief counseling. So I'm really excited about this interview. Nicole's not a person who stutters like myself. I'm an advocate, an ally, a collaborator. I don't stutter. I'm hard of hearing. And this is something that I've only recently been starting to take seriously that needs to be attended to.
So, Paul, with your hearing impairment, do you consider yourself disabled?
I didn't for the longest time, and I think it has. I would now. I would say that I have a disability now, definitely. But like many disabilities, or like a lot of disabilities, it's contextual, right? I'm not disabled when I'm wearing my headphones, when I'm looking directly at people, when there's no noise in the background. However, I become disabled when the situation, such as there's background noise or people are not facing me when they're talking. There's a number of factors that play into whether I'm disabled or not on any given day. Under the best case scenarios, I can hear. Under the worst case scenarios, I have no clue what someone's saying. So it is one of those, and stuttering is probably like this too, right? It's variable, right? Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, and that might be part of why people who stutter, a number of them, especially we've heard from people in interviews, they say I don't consider myself disabled, or I don't consider stuttering a disability. But for me, I consider hearing loss a disability, and it really, I wouldn't have considered that before until I started doing this podcast. So hearing about other people's points of view on disability and whatnot, it's informative, it's educational, and the more you know, the better you can make a decision. And I think once I started taking my hearing loss seriously, I began to see it as a disability. So I think the two go hand in hand. Like if I continued to be in denial or say, oh, this isn't a problem, then I wouldn't say, there's no way I could see it as a disability, right? But seeing it for what it is, and my own personal experience, it is certainly for me a disability.
And seeing it as a disability, has that changed like how you interact with the world, or has it made managing it different, maybe better?
Yeah, I guess with the disability, it helps in some sense. It helps in the sense that there's I shouldn't expect a single solution, that there's no best solution to this, right? I thought, and many people think, if you're going deaf or you have hearing loss, hard of hearing, go get hearing aids. That seems to be the common perception, that hearing aids will fix it, but hearing aids don't fix it, right? So this is so when something like that, when there's no cure, when there's no straight fix, it has to fall into the realm of disability. Otherwise, if we could fix it, I wouldn't be considering it a disability, right?
I also assume that the background noise has a lot to do with your your hearing, I bet.
Oh, background noise is a nightmare. Yeah.
Is it?
If there's background noise, I can barely hear anybody, and it's difficult to sit in like a noisy restaurant or cafe and have a conversation. I was out with a friend the other day, and I was sitting right below a speaker, and I said I'm not going to be able to hear him when he's talking. So I found a new seat, and it still was pretty loud. So after about 20 minutes into our conversation, my friend said, do you want to go outside? Do you want to go for a walk? Because like I can't really understand you, and if I can't understand you, you probably can't hear a word I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he was aware, of the effect it has.
And there are certain background frequencies as well. Like, because again, there's not just, so there's like background noise, which I'm going to call like maybe droning or like consistent sounds or clanging, and like background babble, so like talkers.
Yeah.
And different types of noise place different loads in different ways on our auditory system, and different frequencies in particular are sometimes harder to tune out. And Paul, have you heard of those like loop earbuds? I've had a Flare brand pair. They're not earbuds, but they're like little.
Are the things that you had?
Yeah,
in your,
yeah. Remember,
in your ears
I
to
showed you.
filter
They're
out
just little, and
certain
they
sounds?
just they filter out essentially non-speech frequencies, and they sort of act
Right.
like a little like funnel to funnel the noises, only the ones that are useful, into your ears. And they're not high tech, but they are definitely increasing in popularity for all sorts of different people.
Oh, good.
And I
Yeah.
noticed that for me, when I started wearing them, they really, I could sell them. Like, we should get getting a sponsorship if we post this video from
Oh,
like
we
Flare
should.
Audio.
We should try to get.
Actually, we probably
get some
should try
money.
to do that.
Yeah.
But they definitely decrease like my listening fatigue in the scenarios like you were talking about, Paul. Because I don't
right.
have hearing loss, but I do have ADHD. And it is really hard to choose which noises to attend to
Right.
when you have
Yeah.
ADHD, a constant struggle to, and it's not about necessarily interest, but like if I'm talking to you and then there is like high-pitched whine or something like that, like just choosing to
You're gonna
attend to
focus
you
on that.
takes a lot of cognitive effort. And I would find myself really tired frequently at the end of the day, really snappy with my kids. For
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
sometimes when they were both small and everyone wants mom's attention at the same time. And so when I started to wear those, it did really help with that type of fatigue that goes along with that type of scenario.
Okay.
Talking about noise, you see, as a person who stutters, I like being in a noisy environment.
Oh, you do.
Because the reason why is it gives me an opportunity to mask my stuttering. Because if I have a block or a prolongation, something like that, I blame it on the noise. If the listener says, "Well, wait, I didn't quite understand you," I say it's because of the noisy environment.
Yeah.
So it's actually, it gives me a chance to collect my thoughts and to say it again.
Right.
This is masking.
Oh, and
Right.
No,
so when it's
Just
really
me.
noisy, I'm wondering if it makes you feel like other people are more like you and therefore you're included by default, or does it increase the smoke and mirrors and so that's why you feel more comfortable?
My initial reaction would be to smoke and mirrors, Laura, because this is another form of masking. Being in a noisy environment. And also, I mean, I've also used that as well on the telephone. I mean, I've actually haven't done it, but people who stutter when they're talking on the telephone, they crinkle a lot of paper, and so the listener can hear all the crinkling, whereas the person is blocking, repeating, whereas the listener would say, "Well, I can't hear it," and then the person who started says, "No, this is a connection problem."
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, Paul, do you accept your hearing loss?
I do. I mean, it would be. I couldn't imagine not accepting it though. Like if it not by not accepting it would mean I'd be suffering. I think I would be suffering a lot more.
Okay.
I wouldn't be taking steps. I wouldn't be advocating for myself.
This sort
if I
of
didn't
ties in
accept it.
actually with the interview that Greg did with Nicole. I thought her perspective on her role as a therapist, as like not being a leader, but as being someone who's sitting in the dark hole with you and helping you find your path was a
For sure.
a really good one.
Yeah, and she's mentions that there's a lot of people who stutter are forced to take on, a positive face, a positive demeanor. They're forced into positivity, like, oh yeah, we can get through this. We can accept. We can make this. We can make this our superpower, and that seems to be forced for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, while her interview is very positive and she has lots of hope and positivity, she's dealing with something that is fundamentally difficult, challenging, and at times negative.
And I like how she said sometimes you just have to say, yeah, that sucks. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So refreshing.
I'm in awe with Nicole because I met Nicole last November. I attended her workshop with at the Canadian Stuttering Association conference in Montreal, and she gave this her presentation on grief, and I was shocked because it's the first time I've actually heard an SLP talk about grief. And it's interesting, when I was listening to her presentation and then during our conversation, for some reason or another, I kept reminding myself, Nicole is a speech language pathologist, but I saw her as a social worker.
Yeah.
So knowing that she's starting to trailblaze, really. I mean, she's moving towards becoming, and she used the word partner. She wants to be a partner she views herself not as a person of authority, but as a partner in a clinical relationship.
Why don't we go ahead and move on to the interview between Greg and Nicole. If you're listening to this video, please like it, please share it with your friends, and please subscribe our channel because this video is fantastic and we've got other great videos coming down the line.
So to let the listeners know that I met Nicole at the Canadian Stuttering Association conference, and Nicole gave a workshop called Grief and Stuttering, and Nicole, that was a very informative and enlightening workshop. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And would you give a short overview about your workshop?
Yeah. I don't know how short I can make this because this is a pretty intense topic.
It is, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do draw from the lived experiences of people that I talk to and that I've gotten to know over the years, as well as, clients that I see. And, I sort of combine people's stories and I make another one. And, this topic of grief and stuttering is definitely not everybody's journey. But there are, I think, some themes that people do share in the stuttering community when it comes to grieving a loss, whether that's a loss of, perhaps control over your speech, whether it's a loss of your identity, who you thought you were, whether it's you chasing something and then one day you realize it's never going to happen, right? Dealing with that loss, I think, is really important to talk about because especially the things that I see on social media when it comes to stuttering, there's a lot of positivity that's being shoved in people's faces. And I think a lot of sort of different definitions of acceptance. And we did talk about that, the A word and the F word being acceptance and fluency. And I sort of made it my goal to redefine acceptance in this talk, and identify the value of those quote unquote negative feelings such as anger and depression, and confusion, and feeling all those feelings, and there's value in that because that does propel you forward, ultimately to acceptance, and with acceptance not being this, sort of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but almost something that you carry within yourself because it is a very neutral thing. And I think people have sort of taken it and misconstrued it a little bit.
So, Nicole, based on your experience now, how would you describe the grief that some people stutter experience or share?
Yeah. So grief is a very natural emotion, or a natural process of emotions that we feel when we're faced with something that we can't control, and sort of a loss of that. So whether, like I said before, whether it's a loss of control of your speech, or whether that's a loss that you have imposed on yourself or other people have imposed on you, saying, oh, you can't possibly do X, Y, and Z because you are a person who stutters, and people who stutter can't go into this certain career. And then, that you have that dream that's shattered, and that's a huge loss. Whether that is self-imposed, whether that is other people telling you, it could be a loss of, just realizing that, okay, I stutter and I'm going to stutter for the rest of my life. And that is a loss of identity. If somebody is searching for fluency and searching for a way out, once that realization sort of sets in, you lose who you thought you were going to be as a person. And that is a grief. That is a very real grief. That isn't a primary grief. Like if you lost somebody, like a friend or a family member, you're losing a part of yourself, and you're losing a sort of dream or a goal that you had. And with these feelings of, anxiety, the fear of the unknown, or anger, being able to release your emotions, you get to process through that grief and decide, okay, do I want to do this? Do I continue to pursue this goal because I know I can do it? Or do I take a different path because that's what's best for me right now? And people do, take different paths with that.
Definitely. So, Nicole, what would be some of the underlying themes, things related to? I mean, grief is definitely a loss. It's because we're looking at layers upon layers upon layers of history here, lived experiences based on society's reaction to stuttering.
Right.
How do you address this in therapy with somebody?
How do you address the
The
grief,
layers
or
and the layers of emotional challenges that's been built
Yeah.
over based on
Yeah.
stigma, society's reaction. I mean, that is a lot to work with.
Oh, absolutely. And so when working with somebody who's sort of been forced to fit into a mold, right, by society, of here is the perfect kind of person that you have to be. I don't want somebody coming into the therapy room and feeling like they're going to be tried to fit into another mold. You definitely have to take time to build a connection with your client, and to let them tell you who they are, and tell you how they're feeling. And by listening to a person's story, I mean, I think stories are so powerful. And when you really just sit down and let a person tell you about who they are and what they're experiencing, you can gain a lot of insight to the truth that the person thinks about themselves, like who that person thinks that they are. And it takes quite a bit to unravel and to start going deeper, like using the iceberg analogy, to start sort of diving a little bit deeper and making it okay to have a stuttering experience. Not just making it okay to stutter in the therapy room, but to have the full experience, to have the denial, to have the depression, to have the anger, to have bad days, and being there with your client and telling them that it's okay to have those bad days. Because for a lot of people who stutter, stuttering sucks, and stuttering brings those people down and it holds them back. And it's not my role to look at somebody in the eyes when they're experiencing this kind of loss of their dreams and tell them, well, it's okay to stutter, right? Or, oh, you just have to feel positively about it. That's not my role as a therapist. No, it's not.
It's not.
It's my job to sort of sit in that hole, in that ditch with the client, and to sit with them and let them tell me how much it sucks. And always find a way forward, right?
Nicole, it's almost like, stuttering can be a dark rabbit hole of stuttering and mental health. And as a therapist, you may have to sort of join a person who stutters when they're sharing in this dark rabbit hole.
Yes.
And but the most important thing is to create a safe space within that dark rabbit hole for this person to be able to trust you and share.
Absolutely.
How did you become so passionate about this?
So my passion, I guess, started when I was in grad school. And when you're in grad school as a speech therapy student, you get clients that you see through a supervisor. And so it's either you kind of like do it alone or you have a partner and you see a client together and make up a treatment plan and just start to get to learn all the different types of disabilities and speech disorders and differences. And I got this 18-year-old kid who stutters. I think he was 17 or 18. And at the time, we were learning about strategies and we were learning about fluency shaping, and our supervisor was doing her own thing, and I'm not going to blame her in any way. And she was just kind of passing on her knowledge to us at the time. And we were doing a lot of, counting disfluencies. And I remember this one time we actually had recorded him and played it back to him and asked him to identify disfluencies in his own speech. And as the sessions progressed, I started to see that instead of creating a therapeutic relationship, we were actually drifting apart. And so it was just, the sessions were really awkward and uncomfortable, and nobody wanted to be there, at a certain point. And we were always sending him with homework and saying, okay, you're going to count how many times you stuttered this week and report back to us. Like that mattered at all,
No, it doesn't.
No, it really doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
And so, my partner and I, and shout out to her, we started taking a little bit more of like an emotional route with it. How do you feel about X, Y, and Z? Or, what do you want to be? Do you want to go to college? Like these really big things happening in his life. And, here we are playing TED Talks of people who stutter and like tallying how many times they stuttered. And, as if he didn't know he stuttered. Of course he did. But after that client, my class sort of started to understand that I was like really passionate about this topic. And my speech, that organization who was the Stuttering Scholarship Alliance at the time, reached out and they needed volunteers. So I started volunteering with them, and then we sort of rebranded and I started taking on more leadership positions, and that really filled my cup. And then I started meeting people who stutter online and in person, and it's just sort of been snowballing ever since.
Great.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Nicole, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of SLPs that that are really are certainly not interested. They're not. There's no passion. I should say the passion as well. I mean, they're very reluctant. Is a good word for it, to
Yes,
work
that's a good
with
word.
people who stutter. They're very reluctant to people who stutter because of the emotional component. of the emotional
Yeah.
component.
Yeah.
And because I mean, to actual, to actually to work with people study, that's a huge commitment. And and also, no, I feel that there's a lot of SLPs. I mean, no, I think it's part of the training deficit because you don't get as much clinical experience working with people who stutter. Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, but that's what others SLPs tell me as well. Did you find that yourself when you were going through your early training?
So I was actually lucky enough to be in a program where we had a full semester of a fluency disorders class. And it's really, really shameful on the, curriculums here in the States. I can't speak for the other countries. But how it's pretty much luck based on how much education you get about certain things. So I had a semester long course, but I know people who have had, just a little section or a unit about
Mm-hmm.
stuttering in like a motor speech class or a different kind of class. So I was lucky to have a full semester of that plus a client. So I feel like I personally got a lot of experience. Was it the right kind of experience? Perhaps not. But I learned from it, right? And we all learn from our mistakes, and that's how we grow and get
Mm-hmm.
better. And that's sort of what as I further in my career, I do eventually hope to be a professor and give back in that sense and teach people the right thing to do, which is to treat our clients as human beings
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, because I think a lot of times we come out of grad school trained to assess, to treat, and get our clients' success rates up in their goals. So getting a client from like a 50% success rate to a 100% success rate, and then discharging them. And I think that's why stuttering is so scary to a lot of people, because it's like, well, where do I even start? What do I measure? How do I make it look like I'm a good therapist and I'm helping my client reach their goals? And how do I get the most out of our sessions? And how do I count my data? And what, it's a lot. It's scary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You see, and then uh, you ask yourself, what what is a definition of success within a clinical relationship, because it is success is so subjective, you see.
Absolutely.
But anyhow, so I mean, once the definition of success may be, I want to be able to say my name. What are your thoughts about the importance of working with the mental health of people who stutter, especially because that can be a disadvantage when you're trying to work on the clinical mechanics of speech. What are your thoughts?
Right. I mean, in this sense, and I'll give credit to, I believe it's Scott Yaris and
Mm-hmm.
Nina Reeves. They say you have to be a detective. And I think that's very, very true. Because if somebody does come to me and says, "Can you help fix me?" that clues me in already on the sort of mental health standpoint, that they're not feeling great about themselves, that they feel like they're broken, right? The language that they're using about their stutter, "Can you fix me? Can you cure me? Can you get rid of this?" Like, they're burdened. And so that kind of clues me in on sort of where to start with that person. And it's not my job to say, "Oh, you shouldn't want to get rid of your stuttering." And I think that's sort of where a lot of people will disagree with me. Because I do respect the person's choice. And I think making an educated decision about the type of treatment that you're getting from a speech therapist. And so if someone says, "Oh, can you fix me?" right? I'm going to start to educate them about stuttering, that it's not curable, that there is no cure for stuttering, right? But there are things you can do, and things that if you find easier for yourself, such as strategies, perhaps you do use a strategy to say your name. Who am I to say that that's wrong, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Perhaps you do just want to get through one phone call without blocking or without feeling stress or tension. Go ahead. We cannot be at our 100% all the time. We need ways to cope. Everybody has ways to cope. And I think if we introduce strategies to a person as ways to cope and not a long-term goal or a fix, it's a really great first step into introducing that person to the idea that this will happen forever. And then at the same time, you have to target those emotional issues, right? How's that person's self-esteem? And it is actually within our scope of practice to counsel a person about their communication difference or disorder. So as long as what that person is feeling emotionally, let's just say what we're talking about, the feelings of grief right now, right? If a person's feeling grief because they have a loss due to their stuttering, a loss of dreams, identity, whatever the case may be, it is in my scope of practice to counsel that person and to help them get through that.
Many SOPs are not permitted to, well, here in Canada, to say that, if I ask Miss Jones, do you specialize in stuttering? She may say to me, well, I have an interest in stuttering, but I don't specialize. It appears that SOPs are not permitted. I don't know about you. Are you permitted to say that you specialize, or are you in the same boat?
So here in the States, we do have ASHA, which is the American Speech and Hearing Association, and we do have board certified fluency specialists. So those are people who have gone through a process to have, I believe it's a board certified stuttering, cluttering, and other fluency disorders. Now they have changed the name recently, which is amazing. But they do have those sort of extra letters after their name that they can say, yes, I am a board certified specialist in stuttering or any other type of, like whatever they have their board certification in, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I personally can't just go out there and be like, oh, I'm an expert and I specialize, because I don't. And I'm also like way too young to specialize in anything. So.
I see.
Yeah.
It's I actually feel for, let's say, people who stutter, as well as families are looking for someone who specializes. But I think that time will come, as you just mentioned that you do have a special designation in fluency disorders. Now, the question that I've asked, we all have asked, do you like the word fluency as a speech language pathologist? Is it a good or a bad word?
Oh man, I mean, everybody has their own definition of it, right? It's,
I know.
I guess I would stray towards the bad side, because, I sort of ask, like, what is fluency and does it even exist? I don't stutter, but is my speech perfectly fluent and, at a constant rate? I guess, how are you measuring that, right? Like, is it how many syllables you say per second or how many pauses you take between words? I'm definitely not fluent, right? I do pause and stop, and I use my hands, and there's different things, and I'll try to re-say my sentences and stuff, and I don't stutter. But am I perfectly fluent? No. So I think fluency is this, again, sort of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's a sort of made up thing that everybody's chasing and that everybody wants to get. But does it exist even? I don't know.
Now, as an SLPs, what are your thoughts about the word acceptance, though? I've learned now, as I'm getting older and hopefully more mature, is that I've learned to appreciate my stuttering.
I mean, acceptance is, it just is, right? Acceptance is just understanding and acknowledging that something is there. You can love your stutter so much and not want to change a thing about it and accept it. You can hate your stutter and want to change everything about it, but you're accepting that it's there. So I think a lot of people are sort of combining the word acceptance with the word embracing of, I love my stutter so much and I don't want to change it, and it's just all great, and I wake up every day with a smile on my face and it's never given me a hardship in my life, right? Or it's sort of like a finish line that people reach of maybe not caring about your stutter anymore, or not letting it hold you back, or it's all very positive, and it's that toxic positivity that makes me angry, because it doesn't leave room for the other parts of acceptance, which are the parts that you're sad about or the parts that you're angry about, because the sadness and the anger about something acknowledges its reality, that it's there, it's present.
All sharing feel good story with you, Nicole.
Okay.
Now Mary Wood.
Yes.
Mary Wood. She said, Greg, Mary is so elegant.
Of course.
In her soft-spoken way, she said, Greg, instead of referring to your stuttering, a bad experience of stuttering, just refer to it as that I've had a wonderful period of stuttering. And that really hit me. I thought, is Mary on drugs or something? Why would I refer? Why would I refer to a bad experience of stuttering as wonderful? But even if it works towards appreciation and is not as the intensity of these experiences is becoming less and less. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Mary gave you a free speech therapy session, so I would expect an invoice in your mailbox soon.
Okay.
Because I think that is such almost the ultimate goal of therapy is to make something that has weighed somebody down and has brought them into the deepest, darkest hole of their life, to make it something that they can reframe as wonderful, to make it something that they can think about and say, oh yeah, that just happened and it was kind of rough and maybe it felt weird in my body, but it's over now and we're going to move forward, right? So, I mean, the fact that you kind of took that from one conversation and ran with it, I think shows a lot of growth on your part too, It only really took one sentence from Mary Wood, and people who do know Mary Wood know that it only usually takes a couple words from Mary Wood to change your life.
So true. Okay. Reading the last sentence of your bio, Nicole, you said that Nicole feels a sort of supports people who stutter both in and out of direct therapy and their sessions by focusing more on autonomy and respecting a person's role in their lives and their journey as a partner and not as a person of authority. Do you want to elaborate on that last sentence for us?
Yeah, so I started to sort of question, like, what is my role as a therapist? Like, I know what my job is, right? You do this and then you write the notes and then, you're done with your session and you schedule another one. But what is my role? And I've been thinking more and more about it. And if it's my goal to help somebody, then I'm placing myself at the top. I'm placing myself in the role of, oh, I can help you because I know more than you, or I think I'm better than you, or you're suffering and you're struggling and I need to help you because, you have a deficit of some kind and I need to help bring you up. And I don't want to be that kind of therapist. I don't want to be that kind of person. And so I've been exploring a way in which I can do and provide therapy, but also be sort of a partner with that person. And as I sort of said before, it's like the therapist who will sit in those dark holes, the dark rabbit holes with the person and talk about how angry they were feeling today, and talk about just like how sad and how many times they've cried about their stuttering, things like that, to form that alliance and to form that trust with the other person, and not to help them, but to support them. And I like to sort of think about it as like a crossroads, when you have a fork in the road, it's like, what direction am I going? And I think the way that we learn how to be therapists is that we always have to have the map, and we have to tell our clients which way to go. Oh yeah, you are feeling this way, so we need to go right or we need to go left. And
Which
that's
is a no. That's a no.
right.
That's
I
a
mean,
no.
it's a no-no, right? Because I'm placing myself in that authoritative state of, oh, I know better than you because you have to follow my rules. No, and even if I know it might not be the best path, even if we go down a dead-end road, and let's just say that person really wants strategies for fluency, or maybe that person goes and gets hypnotherapy or acupuncture for their stuttering. I'm not going to sit here and say that's wrong or that's not the right way to go. I'm going to ask them, how was it? How'd it feel, right? And maybe we'll hit that dead end one day and they'll say, you know what? I'm so tired of this. I'm so tired of putting in so much effort to hide my stutter. I'm just going to stutter freely.
Mhm.
All right. So then we turn back around and we come back to the fork in the road. Which way are we going next? And that really, I think, defines good therapy. is being
Definitely.
a partner instead of a leader.
Yeah. Now, what this is a $64 question. I often ask this question. As an SLP, what do you think is a definition of a confident stutterer?
Ooh, that's a
confident
great
stutterer.
question. A confident
Yeah.
stutterer. I think someone who is, well, I guess someone who appears to be a confident stutterer or someone who is a confident stutterer.
Appears to be a confident stutterer or wants to be. That's a good follow-up question for me as well. No, I mean, just somebody who is a confident. Well, appears to be a confident stutterer.
Okay, I would say someone who's not afraid. Someone who is not afraid of putting themselves out there. Somebody who's not afraid of the bad days that might come along, the days that you might feel really down on yourself, or the days when nothing can seem to go right, and your stuttering is a lot more pronounced than it used to be, or maybe the bad days where you've been working on embracing yourself as a stutterer and then your stutter disappears for a week. Dealing with that kind of stuff. So somebody who's not afraid and who can cope and go through those obstacles without fear.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, I've often asked myself that question as well. I've spoken to a number of people stutter who do not hold back. They don't allow their stuttering to control their lives or just to sort of to be used as blocks, whatever. They just talk. And I think this is my definition of a confident stutterer. Somebody that doesn't let their stuttering control them anymore, and just do that in your life.
So, do you think you are a confident stutterer?
Am I a confident stutterer now? I'm still working towards it. I mean, much like us, I'll have my good days and bad days when I sort of a question, and but I think compared to when it was back then, when before speech therapy, Nicole, I could not say a word. A lot of my speech was all the secondary. I used to say, and so you heard this in my workshop that just trying to be able to say my name. I had all the secondary characteristics. Like if somebody asked me my name, I used to point to the standing and say, look now, look now, look now, look now, look now, look now. Starter words and just say, my name is Gus. So compared to that and now, this is not the same Greg.
Does the old Greg consider this Greg a confident stutterer?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I remember I've learned as well the triggers when my stuttering what normally triggers my stuttering more and more is that if I enter a situation, Nicole, and I want to be fluent, the old tape comes back, and these tapes are always there, so you have to control those. So if I want to be fluent, if I want to make sure that I'm part of the conversation, then my stuttering escalates. The old stutter comes back. So it's this fight all the time, you know.
Mm.
But I've learned to befriend that fight, you know. And that's the
Good.
difference. Now, before we close, Nicole, do you have any last words to share with our listeners before we close?
I think the one thing that stands out is to just respect people's journeys, and to not feel like there is only one way to go or only one way to deal or cope with stuttering. Everybody has their own journey. Everybody has their own hardships. Everybody's personalities are different as well, because let's just say maybe I'm friends with people that deal with their stuttering a certain type of way. And that might be the only way of coping that I'm used to. So now someone's saying something else, and automatically I'm feeling the sense of like, oh, are they doing it the wrong way? There is no wrong way. Unless you're actually doing harm to yourself and, falling deeper into the black rabbit hole. But there really is no wrong way if you just stay curious and you go down these paths ready to maybe come back one day and go down a different path.
And we're back. Thanks, Greg, for another fantastic interview.
I loved when you were asking her your $64 question about what makes a confident stutterer. And you were talking about Mary a bit, and Nicole turned it right back around on you. And the question she asked you was, does old Greg consider this Greg to be a confident stutterer? And I thought that was such a neat question. Do you still identify with what you said to Nicole then?
Definitely. Well, the old Greg wouldn't even know how to answer that question, because spending so many years as a covert stutterer, I ran away from stuttering, and to now be asking the same question to our guest, do you consider yourself a confident stutterer? And I would never thought of that, even to ask myself today. And I mean, to be honest with you, I have my good days and my bad days, but I'm not letting stuttering anymore control my life, which means that if that is not considered a confident stutter, what is,
So true.
Mm-hmm.
And also, one thing about Nicole that echoes in my mind, as an SLP, she's moved beyond, or is moving beyond, the clinical manual. Mm. It's called the unwritten manual, which means that SLPs are often, they're responsible for data, clinical intervention, working with the clients to measure their number of disfluencies. But she's moved right on into the counseling perspective. She's a partner with her clients there, so the whole emotional aspect. So she's moved beyond the manual.
Right. She's thrown the book out.
Paul, do you remember when we did the documentary on Dr. Kroll? Remember that?
Yeah.
Documentary. Yeah. And Laura, one of my SLPs, did a speech at Dr. Kroll's memorial, and she said, one thing I learned from Dr. Kroll, working with him, is in a clinical session, you have to move beyond move beyond the clinical manual to the unwritten manual, which brings in all this emotional. So Laura, I mean that sums up this whole interview to a T. Paul, I just read the William Webster's book, Stuttering and Its Management.
Oh yeah.
What the
Oh.
the brain tells us.
Yeah. You got
You
that,
know,
eh?
Yeah, no, he quoted William H. Perkins' definition of stuttering,
Oh yeah.
and it falls in so much in this whole interview of layers upon layers. William Perkins defines stuttering as the sense of impending loss of control.
Yes, I love that definition.
And I'm telling you, this is where I really felt I identify, because it's a person of stutter who is always afraid of blocking prolongation. It's this impending loss of control, and we all know when we all experience a sense of loss of control.
Yeah.
But when you feel it constantly, layers upon layers upon layers, this fear of loss of control. You can just imagine all the emotions built up over the years.
Absolutely. So. And that's the first definition that brings in to it something other than disfluency, right? It says it's a sense. It's something interior that you feel. It's not something that people, when they listen to you, will experience. They experience disfluency. They hear you being disfluent, but this is a very person who stutters centric definition by saying that it's something personal, internal to the person who stutters. So I thought that was a excellent definition. I've never seen a definition like that before.
It's this constant angst of feeling trapped. And so when you're living with this constant angst of when will the next block will come, repetition will come, whatever, it's the sense of impending.
Yeah, it's a sense of always needing to be on and cautious and aware.
Exhausting.
And also, Paul, just off topic, when I was reading his book, Bill kept referring to his wife as an SLP, and it's a small world. His wife was one of my first speech pathologists.
No way.
Years ago. And God, I'm telling you, so it's amazing. It's all linked together.